Genesis chapter 1, verse 7. So God made the vault and separated the water under the vault from the water above it. Before I talk about this verse of the Bible, I'll first of all like to remind you that, like I said, my approach towards the Bible is from a political, a philosophical, and a psychological perspective. And also, I love to remind you also that God is government, and let's just say the supreme government, because when God was creating the earth, what he had in mind was to set up a political structure for earth. And beside that, in Genesis chapter 1 and verse 2, chapter 1, verse 1 and verse 2, God took over power and authority from darkness, which is the reason why he called in light in verse 3. And in verse 4, God had to separate the light from darkness. If you have not watched my other video from verse 1 up to verse 6, please try and watch them so that you can understand more about what I'm talking about in this video itself. Genesis chapter 1, verse 7 is talking about the action of the Spirit of God. Like I said, that God is a different thing and the Spirit of God is a different one. So when God said that let there be a vault to separate water from water, that is, God was referring to the Spirit of God, and the Spirit of God took action in verse 7 to separate the waters from water. That means in the beginning, all the old waters was like together. They were all together, and just imagine how that kind of thing is going to be like. Not all waters are drinkable, like I said in verse 6. Let's assume that all the old waters is mixed up together. It automatically becomes undrinkable, and it won't be able to fulfill its purpose. So God has to actually separate every water from water. That is, every water itself has its own purpose. Like I always believe, everything that God created was actually meant to serve the public. So if all the old waters had been combined together, if there was no separation between waters, then there would be no clarity of purpose between those waters. So God had to make one water be above and another water be below. And even with that, they still had to separate those waters from waters. Just imagine how powerful that would be in that kind of situation. Just imagine it like separating water from water. That is like a kind of extraction of water out of water. No scientist could ever think of doing that in his own lifetime. Because let's be honest ourselves, if we take, let's say, like an ocean water, or let's say seawater, and also take a river water and mix it up, who has the power or authority to separate that water from water, if not God? And that is one of the reasons why I so much respect God, because it's actually mind-blowing to separate water from water itself. And that brings me to the end of this video.